Many people, anime watchers and visual novel readers alike, have probably heard of the popular sci-fi title Steins Gate, but what you might not know is the psychological horror series that started before Steins Gate, the Chaos series. And honestly, if you haven't read any of them, you are missing out, because Chaos Child in particular quite possibly might be the boldest science adventure story out there. A story where actively indulging in true crime is very much a bad thing, where we see a high schooler wannabe journalist pursuing a serial murder case only to realize that the case was pursuing him instead. Hi, my name is August, and let me tell you about this psychological horror thriller murder mystery and the emotional agony that I went through in Chaos Child. Taking place 6 years after the events of its predecessor, Chaos Head, Takeru Miyashiro investigates a murder case with his friends in his school's newspaper club. This isn't any normal murder case though, as he figures out very quickly that this particular death was only the first in a series of odd killings that would mark the return of the new generation murders, an unusual murder incident that plunged the city of Shibuya into a frenzy 6 years ago, where many lives were lost. First things first, Chaos Child is a visual novel that should be read after Chaos Head. A lot of the background details make a lot of sense given the context of those events. While you can play Chaos Child with no background knowledge, I don't recommend it. If you're wondering if this video will spoil anything from Chaos Head, don't worry, all context regarding Chaos Head will be the bare minimum. And if you're wondering if you should even be watching this video in the first place, consider this video as both a review and as an additional plea for you to read the Chaos Science Adventure series. It also works as a way for me to vent out all of my feelings about this title. All of them. Mostly my anguished, tortured emotions. I've covered Chaos Head before, and I went into Chaos Child expecting a similar zero to hero story, but I was gravely mistaken of what I was getting myself into. And it all starts with Chaos Child's very special main character. Takeru Miyashiro is one bold and brash character. He differs greatly from Takumi from Chaos Head in the fact that he's not a delusional, shut-in anime otaku loser, but like Takumi, he can be equally unlikable and frustrating to watch. Takeru can come across as elitist and arrogant, looking down on people who are incompetent and foolish. He calls them wrong-siders, an insulting term used to describe people that lack the ability to understand online information and technology given to them, or is just straight up ignorant about it. To which then he calls those, including himself, right-siders, individuals who make clever use of information and technology to inform and explain subjects and questions correctly. Basically, in his eyes, righteous individuals meant to enlighten information-illiterate simpletons. And as the president of the newspaper club, it's up to him to grab that hot scoop before anyone else to investigate the real truth of the matter, no matter what danger lies ahead. A real handful our main character is, but noteworthy nonetheless. Granted, Takeru's tolerable a majority of the time, but I figured he would tick off some people's irritation meters in specific ways. And yet, he's also a critical and necessary individual to watch, to see his journey and experience many cathartic feelings doing so. The developers sure like to make very divisive protagonists for the Chaos series, but the story is all the more satisfying for writing them like that. I'm being very harsh on Takeru, but you can't blame me for saying such stuff because it's his brash actions that things begin to go horribly wrong and continues to escalate more and more. The strange, unusual murders aren't just happening all around him, but more he keeps wandering right into them, detective style and by pure coincidence. Really, the unnerving horror aspect of Chaos Child comes from the elaborate sequences leading up to the murders, and our main characters getting into situations where they clearly shouldn't be. Here, the visual novel acts more like an investigative mystery thriller rather than a psychological horror, although the delusional Denpa scenes can go very hard at times, all thanks to the delusion trigger. The mechanic works exactly as it did in Chaos Head, continuing to encompass both everything great and bad about it. Positive triggers make Takeru approach the situation from a more excited perspective, while the negative triggers has Takeru experience more wilder fantasies. While some horror sequences are described in gruesome detail, it also likes to indulge Takeru in his lewd fantasies as well, easily the most skippable and ignorable part of Chaos Child. Seeing a delusion of Takeru's friend attempt to commit murder over a ham sandwich was sure something, but I generally didn't think the random equals funny scenarios had much mileage to it. Now, while Takeru and his friends are off having fun in the A-plot, fun with a giant asterisk, we have actual investigators being put to work in the B-plot. Shinjo and Mio take up a good portion of time to elaborate more of the finer details surrounding the murder scenes. The former is a police detective, yes, but he ends up being more of a babysitter for unruly teenagers instead. The most knowledgeable and intelligent one of the bunch being the latter. Mio Kunasato is a very testy individual, easily irritated, slightly impatient, and bad-tempered. I'm convinced she just hates incompetent people in general, which to her is pretty much everyone. It's too bad that Miss Loremaster over here doesn't have much of a spotlight on herself in the story. Would have definitely explained more about why she acts like an asshole all the time. Mio's role is to fill in all the details regarding the story's scientific background, a combination of both real-world science and chuny sci-fi fantasy. And by chuny sci-fi fantasy, I mean high schoolers wielding wacky-ass swords. It's always interesting to see how the Chaos series integrates these two concepts together, creating something both unique and purposeful for the story. I know, the weird sci-fi swords looks absurd, but in the context of the series' world building and seeing what they actually do, it ended up being an underrated element in Chaos Head that I wish got explored more, only for Chaos Child to deliver, showing the true consequences of such a power, both physically and mentally, in the context of the user, their relationships, and the world. Really, Chaos Child is witnessing what happens when shit hits the fan. It is by no means a pleasant, happy story, and every event in here was just a build-up of murder incidents that wounded my heart bit by bit, eventually stabbing me with its plot twists and reveals. But it couldn't have done that without making me care first, making me attached to the characters in here. Chaos Child was like this to me. What I expected, a psychological Denpa horror. What I got, high school crime investigations. What I truly experienced, a found family drama. This is a world post the Shibuya incident that happened 6 years ago. Lives were lost, families were torn apart, and to this day, the people affected by the incident suffers from PTSD. What we have here is a story of those individuals and their lives after the incident. Here, we're introduced to the people that live in the Alba dorm. Nono, the kind and caring older stepsister who takes care of the household, Yui and Yuto, a young biological brother and sister who helps out any way they can, Takeru, the estranged but important big stepbrother, and Sakuma, a poor doctor who became their foster parent. They aren't that well off, but they are trying to live comfortable lives together. They might not be related, but they mean the world to each other. Even Takeru's newspaper club offers the same level of comfort and assurance. Just about everyone we meet is likable in their own unique ways. They are there for each other, even supporting one another through the unexpected murder case that's just been thrown into their lives. As a result, Chaos Child ends up turning into this super convincing found family drama, one that's founded on these characters struggling with their trauma and their experience in the aftermath. A combination of elements that allows you to feel so much for these kids, and that feeling is propelled even further thanks to this character right here. Nono is 100% my favorite character in this game. She is the ultimate form of overprotective, motherly big sister energy, deeply considerate and yet strictly admonishing when need be. She is someone who deeply cares about her family so much and is unfortunately having to deal with her reckless little brother potentially getting himself into danger, to which he then does on more than one occasion. Reading Chaos Child was such an emotional roller coaster for me that this story pretty much birthed a new narrative fear for me, creating a found family that I grew to care about and then potentially putting those lives at risk. The amount of fear and agony I felt watching everything happen was unreal. It was pretty damn fantastic. What I love about this entire ordeal is Takeru's transformation through all of this. And while he and his friends are dealing with the consequences, the rest of the world is watching them like a piece of entertainment. Perhaps people and society are messed up, just like Takeru said. Chaos Child is very much a man versus society conflict. Well, more angry, naive Redditor versus society, but that's besides the point. This visual novel takes place in 2015, very current with the rising influence of mass media technology, where information rapidly spreads and thoughts/opinions are virally shared. Just seeing an unusual murder can spark a wildfire of online conspiracy theories and discussions, to where the lines between fact and fiction begin to blur. We see how technology propagates this information quickly and sends out immediate feedback just as fast, both positive and negative, and that's dangerous. What's amusing is that while society is never actively involved in the actual murder investigation, if you look closely, you can see how it can be responsible as a factor of some deeply rooted causes. While our characters are dealing with secrets that the general public must never know, they still have to deal with the endless propaganda, ignorant opinions, and blatant criticism from the mass public. If all of society believes it to be true, then it is considered fact, regardless if it was right or wrong. If all of society judges an individual harshly, then that label must be correct, regardless if it was truthful or not. It's no wonder why Takaru loudly proclaims himself to be a right-sider, mocking those who are blind about the real truth. And yet, it's really difficult to discern what the quote-unquote real truth can be at times. While there are those who strive to inform people of the facts, you have those that seek to outright deceive people, malicious actors who manipulate information for their own personal gains, either to advance their agenda, make money or fame off of it, or simply because it was fun to do so. Here, Chaos Child shows us how people engage with information, choosing to believe in what's presented to us or choosing to reject the notion, regardless if it's truthful or not. Our main characters aren't excluded from this either. In fact, Chaos Child's biggest kept secret is this idea best demonstrated. It's a wild story plot point that I never even once considered, which is why Takaru finds it so important to search for that objective truth. Of course, his ventures are motivated by his stubborn, self-important eagerness, but he's got a point. However, what happens when that objective truth is something Takaru finds opposite to his beliefs, something that would force him to confront a painful fact, something that would turn his world upside down? That conflict is compelling all throughout Chaos Child, and watching him deal with it, almost going insane about it, is very interesting to watch. Honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing at how ambitious Chaos Child's ideas and commentary is, considering the visual novel was first released back in 2014. It's a very contemporary modern visual novel where its deeper thematic ideas still feel familiar today. Makes me wish for another installment in the Chaos Science Adventure series, tackling modern technology and the social landscape today. Although, I'm not sure how to feel about its main characters potentially doing YouTube/TikTok dances. A dangerous monkey's paw situation, really. Now, one important note, if you do get the PC version of Chaos Child, I would highly recommend downloading the Committee of Zero patch for the game. Benefits include typography and UI improvements, translated CGs and backgrounds, subtitle videos, and most importantly, bug fixes. There's even a spoiler-free guide to all of the routes on the website, which I found very helpful to quickly navigate through all of the routes and in the recommended route order. Speaking of multiple routes, all of the heroines have their own stories to be read after the common route is complete. How I would basically describe them is a range from average to strangely random to depressingly what the f. As if Chaos Child wasn't already done making me depressed in the common route. The only exception to this was No-No's, which is absolutely fantastic and everything I wanted out of a No-No route. She's also extremely cute, but that's a deeply personal take. To clarify, we get a deeper insight on some of these characters, some of which were completely underutilized this entire time, and even then it gave me really divisive feelings about it. But I couldn't do anything about it but suck up and read it, because those routes are necessary to unlock the true ending, the one that perfectly wraps up everything into a definitive end for the story. It's one hell of a struggle, but Chaos Child's story is not complete until you finish the true ending. Bittersweet, but a necessary ending for our main leads. I can suspect that a fair amount of people won't like it emotionally, but as the conclusion for Takaru's character arc, it was very much a fitting ending. Reading Chaos Child was an emotional thrill ride in many ways. Mixed feelings, both good and bad. But I honestly think that this is a story that I can never re-experience again with the same emotions I did reading it for the first time. I've said all I need to say. You should play Chaos Child, well, Chaos Head, and then Chaos Child. Was it fun? It really was fun. Now, if you enjoyed this video, check out my other science adventure videos over here, or consider watching this video over here. I would like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novels. You guys are fantastic, and if you would like to be a part of that effort, please consider subscribing.